Hello, my name's Robert Dean Steele, and today I'm going to talk about how to be a successful person. Now, get this straight. I am not some sort of, motivational speaker or guru along that lines, but I have lived long enough to know how to live a successful life. So, the first thing, of course, that you have to have a successful life is, of course, having a relationship with God. I cannot stress that enough. You know, it was John who wrote this. He says, I pray that you be in prosperity and health even as your soul prospers. That simply means that prosperity and health, success, begin from the inside out. And where else can you find the best connection in, of course, the Lord Himself? Secondly, always have concrete goals in life. Now, you also have to realize that life is fluid. So there's also those ebbs and flow in life. So remember, know what is urgent and crisis, and also what is chaotic and confused. And don't allow those things to draw you away from the goals that you have. Now, I want to remind you that sometimes we find in life that the goals that we set are rather unrealistic. So, what I'm suggesting for you today is have realistic goals. Know where you're going and how you're going to get there. That is so very, very important. Also, as well, establish a routine and stick to it. That means that, for example, every day you should have a quiet time with the Lord. Then say to yourself, okay, I also need to spend time with people that are important to me. Never allow, people to come second to everything else. I know that there are many businessmen out there and many people who are working in vocations where your boss or the business that you're involved in takes a huge amount of time to be successful. But you got to be able to balance the whole aspect of work and also as well, what you want to accomplish. I remember when I was in my early time as a pastor. And I was really working hard to establish my church. And I remember coming home one day, and my son, whose name was Robert, was about 2 or 3 years old, and he called me Pastor Daddy. It was in that moment that instead of looking at me as a dad only, he was looking at me in the context of my vocation. Right then and there, I made a decision that my family was going to come before my vocation. So that's very important as well. And have a daily routine, something that you can feel that you can accomplish. I remember watching this one particular video about a man who was talking to a bunch of Navy SEALs. And he said, basically, the very first thing you should do during the day is make your bed. Because he says, when you make your bed, at least you've accomplished one task through the day. Well, I'm not telling you what your routine should look like, but you need to establish a routine that is, doable every day. Also, find yourself a mentor or an accountability partner. I cannot stress that enough. You see, the simple fact is you and I can easily get off course, and that's why we need a mentor, an accountability partner, or our spouse, and just say, how am I doing? And don't be afraid to take criticism and make changes in your life. Because I want to tell you something. You can be the captain of your own author of confusion. So I have actually a nice little plaque in my office that says, don't bother me right now. I'm the captain on this ocean of confusion. So let's not let that, allow people to speak into your life. Also, as well, streamline your routine. That means get the things out of your life that are really not of real value. There's a lot of things that we do. You say to yourself, well, I want to watch this TV program. And so you start watching this TV program or movie, and before you know it, 2 or 3 hours are gone. And you're thinking to yourself, why did I do that? You need to understand what is important and what is not important. That's why I always tell people, make a list of what you think is important and narrow it down and try to do 3 or 4 things really, really well. Also, learn how to say no. Now, I was talking to someone just recently about this major problem. And he told me, he says, my biggest problem is, he says, when I say, when I say yes, usually it takes a lot of time away from something else. And so I said, well, what you need to do is learn how to say no. And he says, I find it hard. And many people do find it hard because part of our value is in what we do. But it's important to recognize that if something isn't in line with your values, if it isn't in line with your priorities, if it isn't in line with your goals, sometimes you just have to say no to that thing. Also, learn to be smart with your resources. I want to tell you something. Many of us are not very good with our resources. That simply means our time, our talents, and of course, the money that we have, the possessions that we have. I want to give you a little tidbit or a little thought, and that's simply this, and that is, of course, realize that your resources belong to God. And because they belong to God, they should be available for His use. But also as well, I had a friend who had a simple rule, and his simple rule was 80% to take care of all the needs, 10% to the Lord, and 10% to savings. He was saving for the future. So maybe that's something to think about as well. And please learn from your mistakes. I have discovered that if you don't want to do something again, learn from it. It's absolutely essential. There have been many times I've said, I don't want to do that again. And so I ask myself this question, okay, what can I do to make sure that this mistake doesn't need to be repeated? Because I guarantee if you don't learn from your mistakes, you're going to end up repeating it. So here's some simple thoughts. So I hope that what I have to say for you or said to you today will help you. My name is Robert Dean Steele. Thanks for spending time with me.